specific to women in the workplace and balancing parenting in the workplace. And I want to premise our discussion on these statistics that recently came out. Last month, 617,000 women left the workforce compared to 78,000 men. And it's estimated that 1 in 4 women right now are considering leaving the workforce. That is a big deal, coupled with this challenge. And I just am going to start with Lindsey on this one, but I want us to spend a little bit of time on this one because this is shifting a culture, the way these statistics read it. And Lindsey's question has a lot to do with these stats. Breanna, I'm seeing Lindsey and Lindsey's question, but Breanna's answering it.
So
Lindsey, you're in the middle. I always see your smiling face.
The statistics are right on, and the question is incredibly valid right now. Women do carry an unbelievable amount of both the tangible and intangible requirements of the home life and even of work life. It's well known that women are more prone to anxiety than others as well, which adds to their negative belief system that maybe they're not good enough, they're not doing enough, they're not carrying enough of their share, all of those things, whether again it's at work or at home. At work, that anxiety sometimes can get even worse because you're competing day in and day out with oftentimes men that are looking for advancement just as well as you may be looking for advancement. And so when you feel like you have to take a day off because of a child issue, it feels like it's a bigger setback than maybe it is. Just depending on the workplace. So balancing all of this, balancing work, balancing parenting, remaining in the workforce is incredibly challenging right now. But again, we'll go back, routine, that keyword routine is important, but more importantly, I think it's important to communicate with those around you. One of the panelists, I'm sorry, I don't remember which one it was, but said earlier on too, that asking for help or communicating your needs with those around you is often incredibly well received. Asking a friend, a family member for pickup times, if that's what they can do and your child needs picked up at a certain time, ask them for that help. If you have a family member that excels at math and you have a 12-year-old kid that is just struggling and basic algebra is hard enough for you, get that friend involved and have them attempt to help walk through that homework with the child. But communicate with one another, communicating with your employer oftentimes and letting them know, here's our situation, here's what I would like to happen in the future if this issue presents, what do you think? Or if you don't have a plan or you're very anxious about that future event, brainstorming with your boss or colleagues to make sure that there is a plan in place can help create balance as well, because once that event happens, there's already a plan there and it doesn't go into chaos with everybody trying to manage through. And then if the event never happens, that is just a positive as well. So communication, asking for help are two of the most important things. Don't be afraid to ask these kiddos to help you around the house too. They are willing. They just don't see problems the same way that women do in particular. And so asking kids to fold towels in the laundry for the younger ones, folding full clothes, both the adults and the siblings, is not unheard of. Significant others, particularly sometimes the boys, don't always see the mess the girls see, and so they don't see that sink full of dishes. But as a mom or anybody in the home, if you just ask, hey, would you mind doing this tonight? I'd really appreciate it. Most likely that sink full of dishes will get done, and that will be one thing you don't have to do. So don't be afraid to ask, whether it's the kids, whether it's the adults in the home. Ask for that help when you need it.
Dr. Hill, I can imagine, we talked a little bit about this and you mentioned it before, in line with Breanna asking for help. That presents it presents a position of vulnerability that so many are not accustomed to, and they're uncomfortable with.
Right.
But what's the worst that could happen?
Right. Exactly. They might not be able to, but you can ask someone else. And I think, you know, women are so programmed right now to think that we have to be able to do it all. And I have to admit, I'm totally guilty of this myself. But, you know, trying to do well in the workforce and keep your families thriving and, you know, just be able to do it all. And it's hard in a regular kind of world, but right now we just have to get help. We have to ask. And I think too, that women really need to be kind and forgiving of themselves, because we have such high expectations in general for ourselves that we might not be able to do at this time in survival mode, and, you know, just kind of keeping things as stable as we can, that we need to be kind and forgiving of ourselves. And if we can't do things just perfectly like we would like to, then, you know, that's okay. It's still gonna be okay. And Breanna had mentioned that, you know, women tend to be at higher risk for anxiety. And so I would say a good strategy too is for people to remember that a thought is just a thought. So just because we have the thought that something horrible is gonna, like, what if I ask for help? Oh my goodness, what if they think less of me? Well, that's just a thought. That's not a fact. That's not what's happening right now. So mindfulness strategies focus on accepting what's happening right now in this moment without making any judgment on it. And I think that is critical for women to use too. So, and that includes our feelings too. Like, I'm feeling really scared right now to ask for help, but this is the situation. And it doesn't mean I'm not a good mom. It doesn't mean I'm not a good worker. It just means I can't make all this happen right now. I need help. That's the fact. There's no judgment on it. And then to be able to ask for that help, accept those feelings. Those feelings are okay. That's just what I'm experiencing right now. There's no judgment on it.
I have a question here. Because I work from home, I feel like I have to check my phone far more often, since people can't just walk up to my desk. But being on several devices at once can be very draining. Any thoughts on that?
I think that's a really good point. And I would communicate with the people at work your preferred method, or maybe you make an agreement that you will check your phone every hour or something like that, whatever seems reasonable to you, so that you can put it away to be able to really focus and do some work and then meet that. So whether it's checking email, you know, or checking your phone, whatever you need to do, but just again, communicating that to your coworkers is really important. And, you know, checking with them, does that seem to work? Will that be enough time if I check it every hour or every 2 hours, whatever you think would be a good amount of time, to establish those new boundaries for yourself, because you need that to be able to stay focused and to work well without being too drained. But good for you for noticing that was happening. That's important.
Lindsey, I'm going to flip this question a little bit, because you were earlier talking about modeling behavior for children. Sometimes we have to model behavior for our colleagues and how we treat our colleagues. Can we speak to that a little bit? Because we've talked about giving ourselves grace and setting our expectations more realistically for ourselves. It's probably something we should probably do for others too, right?
Absolutely. Well, and I think this question gets to something that I think all of us have experienced, as we have maybe different hours in the office or more from home. And, you know, the little meetings that happen when you can pop into somebody's office or before or after the meeting, that just doesn't happen in the same way. And so we have to be much more intentional. I can't have a 2-minute conversation here. I have to either figure out how the best way to communicate will be. And I also have to let my colleagues know when I'm going to be there and when they can count on me. And I think setting those boundaries, modeling that communication, and then also modeling grace is really, really important. And I don't know, sometimes you set up a Zoom so that you can start 15 minutes early or go 15 minutes late and have the extra part of the meeting just to chat and catch up that you might have if you were able to be in the same space. But being aware of and making space for all of that, I think, is really important.
Any thoughts, Breanna?
I really like Lindsey's Lindsey's idea. I don't know if she's ever done it or been able to model it or had it modeled to her, but setting up that extra time before or after a meeting to be able to catch up. Working from home has so many of its own challenges. One of which is the lack of social interaction that our work family used to provide to us. And so getting creative, finding innovative solutions to problems are important. And one of those might be a little bit of extra time, but increasing that communication, echoing Dr. Hill and Lindsey's suggestions that just finding ways to increase communication through appropriate methods is important. If that means a brief meeting every day to touch base, instead of having to send multiple emails throughout the day, getting information from everybody, or one group email that is always just kind of going and you catch up, whatever it might be, finding creative solutions so that it works for you. And if you find it's not working, share that with somebody so that you can continue to adapt and adjust to meet your needs as well as everybody else's.